Everybody. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Gabriella Guglielminotti Trivel. I hope I've got that right. The founder of Flying Inspiration. My name's Sue Ellum, and I'm the founder of Soulfully Connecting. So, good afternoon, Gabriella. I hope I got your name right.
Good afternoon, Sue. Perfectly spelled and pronounced.
Oh.
Well done.
I was wondering. Okay, Gabriella is the founder of Flying Inspiration, and this is a company that helps women to discover their inner potential, and she concentrates on women's cycles and all that sort of thing. So it's quite interesting. So I will let Gabriella explain more. She knows obviously a lot more about her own business. So Gabriella, who are you? Who are you as a person? And yeah, who is Gabriella?
Oh, well, it's a kind of full, long question to answer, but I will try to make it as short as possible. I'm originally from Italy. I was born a few decades ago in the north of Italy, in Turin, and I studied languages because I thought at the time it would allow me possibly more freedom, you know, being able to travel abroad and being able to understand other people. Italian is only spoken in mainly Italy, really, or former colonies in parts of Africa, but very tiny. So, or by immigrants, of course. There were many Italians migrating through centuries. But anyway, and so I, because the place over there felt a bit narrow for me, I mean, mentality-wise as well, it's among the mountains, and you know, sometimes people can be more narrow-minded. But anyway, I thought it would be a good option for me. So I studied different languages. I speak, well, obviously English, French, and German. Being Italian, I do understand a bit of Spanish. As it happens, they're kind of similar. And I did study Arabic as well, but that was kind of quite difficult and different from Italian. So as my fifth language, I thought, you know, it would be too much. But anyway, I've been living in UK for almost 18 years now. And the way I ended up here was a bit strange. I was working in 1997 as a rep for an Italian tour operator in the Maldives, and I met a British guy, and we dived together. I was diving there when I had some spare time, and so we got to know each other, and so I eventually got kind of friendly with him. I ended up in this country. That's the story behind me and landing in the Albion, as my father still calls it. How is it up there in the perfect Albion? Anyway, I ended up here in 1998, and when I arrived in UK, I actually was living in London, and for the first time I felt quite at home. Because I think London being such a multiracial place, you know, you can find all the colors under the sun in the same place. So I really love that. And I love the fact of being in the tube and sitting there while going home after work and being able to hear all sorts of languages. Many I didn't know. Great. Yeah. Anyway, I done different jobs as an interpreter, and then also I went back in working into the travel industry for some time. And then what happened with me was that I could feel that there was something all right, and I was feeling a bit like kind of not satisfied anymore. So I realized that there was something that I had to change or to give. I had to feel my spirit alive again. And it took me some time, but I realized that the work I was doing wasn't satisfying me anymore. But also at the same time, I had problems in my relationship that became a marriage, and from then the marriage became a divorce. And so it was, you know, in those situations, kind of painful, complicated, and tends to drag along for a while. So it was a very transformational time. In that time, I came across neuro-linguistic programming, and I got an interest into it because I always been interested in the mind and how powerful it is, and especially the unconscious. So for me, I didn't know the existence of NLP before, but when I came across it, I thought, ooh, this is really me. I needed to have a go at it. So basically, I trained into it. And I have to say that it was very positive for me. It really helped me to regain a kind of an identity center, feeling more grounded and understanding a bit more what was going on in my life, in that mess of a life, etc. Still though, I could feel it wasn't all. There was still something missing. Now, just to make people understand a bit, before coming to UK, I kind of fell into the, let's call it, personal transformation or personal development world in my 20s. Because I ended up in an international macrobiotic institute in the Swiss Alps where I was volunteering as a translator. So through that, I basically came across macrobiotics that is a bit of a philosophy of life, really. And yes, it's a way of also eating, but it's not just that. And I find it very interesting. And it was possibly my first step into a world that I really like, which is the world of the unknown. You know, everything that we don't know, everything that seems magical or strange, but very interesting, or at least for me. So that was my beginning, because when I got into macrobiotics, then through that, I, of course, in my country, when I went back home in Turin anyway, I started, you know, attending maybe conferences or courses about the thing, getting to know people that were a bit not normal, and so they felt really nice to me. And so, you know, I started really reading about different things. And then also, even at university, I was doing languages, and I managed to find a way to write my thesis, which initially you do at the end of all the exams you do for your degree. Basically, you have to write a thesis, and I managed to find through a professor there an author that was interested for me, whose name was Gustav Meyerink, who was an esotherist. So again, I was so happy because I was so daunted by the idea of, you know, academic stuff. I find it very boring, including literature, even if there are bits that are kind of intriguing. And so that was very interesting. But I'm saying this just to portray a bit who the person I am. So I'm intrigued by the unknown. So you can imagine when I was then in UK and trying to get together because Gabriella was falling to pieces. I knew a lot of stuff that normally people don't know, but I have to say this, you know, when we go through difficulties, I think we all experience this. We feel really we feel our bottom on the ground, meaning we don't know what to do.
I think that's the case. It really, when are in situations, difficult situations or in painful situations, that's when we really look inside and we start to make changes. When things are going along really hunky-dory, then we don't have a need for change because we're all happy and everything. And I think it is either trauma or as in your case, like divorces and things like that. That kind of thinks, well, who am I? You know, you come out of a relationship and it's like, well, I'm here on my own. Who am I outside of this relationship? So I can understand. You know, I think that happens to everybody. It's a kind of a, well, this is my time to start afresh. That's what other direction am I going in? Can I ask you, when you mentioned you speak quite a few languages, has that helped you specifically connect with women of other cultures? And is that one of the reasons why you work specifically with women? With Flying Inspiration, for instance, what is it that Flying Inspiration does? Your company and yourself. What do you do within that?
Basically, while I was going through that traumatic time, the name came to me, but Flying Inspiration, but I didn't know what it would be. Yes, I knew that I wanted to have something of my own, and because I couldn't, I was very done at work, I have to say this, and so it really came to the forefront of my mind that I would really like to do something for myself. But at the moment I was distraught, I didn't know. The name came though, Flying Inspiration, and it stayed with me, so till to these days. But speaking other languages helped me in London to speak with people of other cultures. At the time though, I think I was still a bit of a lost woman, meaning, I explain you. It was only after the finishing of the legal procedure of the divorce that lasted, unfortunately, 2 years. And then I ended up signing up to go to Antarctica. That was totally unplanned. And I also traveled on my own for a month in South America. And that was quite interesting for me to kind of reconnect with my spirit. But then that was 2008, but it was only in 2009 that I actually, at the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, that there were two things that kind of really helped me in refining myself. Well, first of all, I realized I wanted to learn to fly. And so also, because I was thinking about the name, Flying Inspiration, and it just came to me. I remember that there was always something I wanted to do, is to become a pilot. And I thought, oh, maybe I should start doing something about it. And the second thing that happened that for me was pivotal. It was coming across a lady called Alexandra Pope, and she had been working with the menstrual cycle with women for a long time. She was in Australia. She lived there for over 20 years. But then she came to this country, back to this country because she's British. And so I met her in 2009 through a conference call first, and then I went to the workshop. And that day for me, it was really a turning point. First of all, I realized what is my life calling. And I realized that I always felt deep inside my heart this love for women. But when I was little, I didn't understand why. I could feel this love of wanting to help other women. I would see them as friends, but the reality wasn't like that. We all know that women can be really bitchy with one another at times, So, and I couldn't understand it in the mind of a little girl. And it was only when in 2009, I did this workshop, and it became clear to me the influence of our cycle in obviously our physical body, and how it connects with our mind, emotions, and obviously our spirit, because we're all one thing, a complicated thing. Yeah. And so I find it extremely interesting. I realized that I could have been a very different woman that day, well, in the present, if only I could have been introduced to this simple stuff before, or at least when I was becoming an adult in my adolescence years, but it didn't happen. So I felt my grief, of course. I felt like kind of, why nobody told me? But then I also realized the reality around me. And he was in London, so in the group of women, at the workshop, I realized there were many different women from different source, different countries, different cultures, and with different problems. And the thing that came to me, it was this: the suffering of women that touches all of them independently from the continent they come from, what their history is, in some way. And I explain more about this. Yes, there are women that might have physical problems with their menstruation, right? It's the right way to call the female cycle is menstruation. But that problem is never just physical. It's the superficial layer of a very deep thing, which is the problem in itself of being a woman in a world that has been under patriarchy, the rule of men, for a long time. Now, that day I really realized this, and I felt it to such depth that I realized that I wanted to do something active to possibly change the future, as I couldn't change my past. And so in my 40s, a woman in her 40s is pretty kind of, let's say, call it made woman. I mean, of course, we develop until the day we die, obviously, but it's not like a young girl, anymore, or it's not a woman in her 20s when she's possibly still a bit more naive. I don't know how much these days, but anyway, I was a woman in my 40s, so I was very feeling very the depth of this. And that day I said to myself, I'm going to change this. That's how it all started. And it's still continuing. I'm still trying my best every day to find a way to reach out.
It's important. I think with many cultures, the women's cycle, like the Native American and the different cultures, they really honor the kind of the menstruation period. Yet with, so say, Western women, you just kind of work through it, and it's literally called the curse, isn't it? It's and it's something you get through as quickly as possible, and you hope you're not going to have pains and stuff like that. And it's not honored. It's not. It's just a nuisance.
Yeah, and to that I want to add this. You see, I was mentioning that going to their workshop, being in a room with roughly 30 women of different extraction, with different origins, with different problems, really opened me up to a reality that I didn't know of before. And quite simply because I could say I had been very fortunate in that department, not having had major problem. So what we tend to do, all humans are similar in that, if we don't have pain, we tend to live happily, or what we think is happily, because that's it. We don't bring the attention to something unless we have a problem. It's just in the way we operate, generally speaking. Unless we are very, maybe, I don't know, spiritual, psychic, and we feel something that calls us, but otherwise it doesn't happen. And so one of the things that I realized that day was the fact that, yes, those women in the room that had problems, they were there because they wanted to solve a problem. I was there instead, not because I had a problem, because I never was in pain, but I ended up to the workshop because through my years of transformation and divorce and all the rest, I was very stressed. So I noticed that my cycle changed the rhythm and became erratic, etc. And because I had a background in personal development, alternative medicine, etc., I realized, stop, Gabriella, pay attention, because there's something here that you have to pay attention to, even if it's not a problem in itself. But I realized I needed to know more. So I kind of put out there the desire of knowing more that wasn't through the normal way, like normal allopathic, medicine. And so Alexandra Pope showed up in my life. And to be honest, I was amazed that day, because the knowledge in itself of what the cycle means for a woman is so simple. But like everything in nature, is blooming simple. But for some reason, as a society, we step away. And that's applicable not just for the cycle, it's applicable for so many things. As a human race, we stepped away from our good origins, our roots, and we are not realizing that as we are killing the planet, we are also killing ourselves. And that's the same. So the cycle, if it's not a problem for a woman, I'm saying, okay, pay attention, because what you don't know, you don't know. So I didn't have a problem. So it took me till my 40s to find out. Whereas if you're much younger, you could profit from this knowledge and have so much more awareness about yourself. Because there's no doubt in my mind that, let's say in my early 20s, if I known that it's normal to change over the month, because that's what happened to a woman. It's normal. So, and they explain to you, look, you're going through 4 different seasons. I call them seasons because it's very handy to explain to people, what women go through. So like the 4 seasons of the year. So even just that, if somebody just said that to me, it would have helped me to, first of all, pay attention to when my body was asking me to be quieter. And so I wouldn't have felt, I'm not social anymore, I'm becoming something of a weirdo. No, I would have just simply, felt happily in my lovely maiden state, a glorious maiden state of a young woman, and, happily menstruated and straighting in that week or whatever, for instance. Or when I started having a relationship with boyfriends, as one does, I would have paid attention definitely more to my own inclination and the hints on my body, and also for contraception. So no way I would have taken the pill, forget it. So that's another practical thing. It wouldn't have happened if I knew all this. But I happen to be, I'm not ancient. I was born in the 60s and in Italy, which is not the so-called third world, right? So possibly if I'd born in UK, it would have made not much of a difference. I would have, as I did, you go to the doctor, you say you want some contraception, and here they go and they give you the pill. But they don't tell you all the side effects. They don't tell you all the other alternatives you have. They don't tell you all the lovely things that ancient cultures used to teach women. Obviously, older women would teach younger women. And that makes sense, right? Not a gynecologist who happens to be also a man.
That's true. And also, something that came to mind, that know that I was made very a while back. So be a problem with the connection a bit. Okay. That if there are, I used to flat share when I first came to London, and if there's a number of women in the same place, there's a connection. They don't necessarily have to get on, but the periods, they kind of all start to happen around the same time. What's your view of that one? That women's bodies change and they kind of so they gradually all come into synchronicity.
Yes, it's funny. I'm asked that question very often, and I ask myself this question very often as well in the past, and I still ask myself that question. And I tell you, I don't have the answer. I'm only guessing that nature tends to be quite successful and knows better than we do. So I think if it does that, because it does happen, as you say, if you bring women they will have different cycles obviously menstruate in different times of the month. But if they live together, after a while, like it's by magic, they tend to synchronize themselves. So there must be a very good reason about it.
I think it must be something about a strong bond between women, even if they're not consciously aware of it. There is such a strong bond.
I think two possible things that came for me so far, but maybe tomorrow I might have another one. So one thing is, in a way, there is something which becomes kind of handy if women synchronize the cycle, because by going through the 4 different seasons of the cycle, we tend to go through different energies, emotions, etc. So if different women live in the same place and their cycles is synchronized, in a way, there will be more harmony, because they will want to do the similar things at the same time. So that's the practical side. The other more, I would call it maybe metaphysical reason, is the following. I think as women, unlike men, we have something in common, which is so basic because it's biological. And it's actually the only thing, the fact that we all menstruate and we all can give life. We can become pregnant and give birth. Now, this is something very powerful, because if you think about it, even just for a few seconds, it's pretty magical, isn't it? It's the force, the creative force that creates everything. Whatever might be one's own beliefs or religion or philosophical origin, doesn't really matter. But we all recognize there's some kind of general energy that does the general things, you know, the headquarters, or what would you prefer to call it. So there must be a reason why women have been given this. And it's a very bonding, very almost tribal, I would almost call it, because it's something that it hits the first 2 chakras, right? So the centers of survival, the center of is our core. So it's something that makes us all feel sisters. And I think the problem with our planet and the way things have been going for a few thousands of years, you know, patriarchy has kind of found ways, consciously, unconsciously, of dividing women. So what I think is now time for women of our age, the 21st century, to do is to rediscover our sisterhood. Because I think, this is my personal view, and of course you can have your own, and everybody is entitled to one on view, but I think it's this women sisterhood that will help change things in a good way. Personally, that's what I think. But that could be a theory, and it's my humble view interpretation.
Yes, but it's worth noting, because this is something you focused on. It's something that you are drawn to. It's what you're meant to be doing. It's your journey, and when that happens, you delve into things. You look at things more deeply. And therefore you have more knowledge to impart than people that just think about it if it affects them. You know, I mean, I know men will probably kind of agree that women have many different moods at different times. So it's about knowledge and about whatever people's opinions are, it's always wise to listen to somebody that has researched it, who's drawn to it. And if they don't agree with it, that's fine. But it's nice to just have an open mind and listen. I would
have appreciated to have had this knowledge earlier rather than later. And about
Yeah.
men, I want to say this because I think it's so important. Well, first of all, there's something needs to be said. As women, we have male and female energy, and so do men. But concerning menstruation, I think it's so refreshing for men when they understand and they are explained this, because you can really see from their faces, it's almost like a load is taken off their shoulders. Because for them, if it's a mystery for women, you can imagine for men. Yeah, they really don't know anything.
They don't know how to fix it, do they?
And the thing is, it would be so useful for them to know. And it's not complicated, and they don't have to, do a course in gynecologist or anything like that. It's simply for them. If I could say to men right now, I would simply say this: as it happened to my partner, I am sure it could happen to any man out there. Because they don't know, and they just been at the receiving hand of this strange, mysterious process or being called woman, right? And they don't know. They start by having to put up with their moms, maybe moods, then the teachers' moods, and then maybe their girlfriends' moods, and then possibly their spouse or their wives, if they get married, whatever. And then if they have daughters, then they have to start putting up with their moods as well. So it's like kind of, and the one that maybe are more reflective, they might have done the equation 1 + 1 = 2, and maybe to come to the conclusion, yes, there must be a time in the month that women tend to be more maybe direct or nervous or irritable, etc. But that's about it. They don't really know more than this. And the sad thing is that because they don't know, they don't really know that with the price of one woman, they actually gain 4 of them.
Yeah.
1 for 4. And I want to explain this, because basically if you take the month, just for easiness of explaining this, the menstruation, the cycle, female cycle, let's consider it month, 4 weeks, even easier. So the first week, let's suppose, is the winter week, which is the week when a woman bleeds. Yeah. So that week is a very, time for her to take care of herself, possibly be on her own if she wants to, feels like it, and she needs to rest more. Okay. But the thing is that winter time, if you're in a relationship with a woman, dear man, you can have the best of intimacy, because a woman is really open also psychically to other dimension. So in a relationship, if you have an intimate relationship, it's a time to really, not a yucky time, it's a time to really, take a look into. And even sex can be very different. So check it out. The second week is spring. So in this week, a woman blossoms like spring, so becomes very active, very joyful, very outgoing. So if you want to do active things with a woman, do it in that week, and it's during spring. And then in summer, which is the 3rd week, which is when a woman ovulates, well, then if you are sexually active, take precaution if you don't want children. But apart that, a woman becomes very sexy and sexual during that week. Yes, that's nature for you, right? But on a different level, socially, emotionally, a woman is really open. It's very easygoing, says yes to everything. It's just a time that is very good for networking. So if you want to have dinner parties, suggested during that week. And then the fourth week, which is equivalent to autumn, like we are in autumn right now, it's also the very week that has got this bad press, is the premenstrual week, when many women may suffer of PMS, which is again the short form of premenstrual syndrome, or PMT, which is nothing else that is plain simply nothing else that a woman becoming maybe not very available in all levels. And I can explain you why this happens. Simply happens because in this week, it's a very important time for a woman to reconnect with herself. So and she becomes really open and direct. So again, if you are in a relationship, if it's a review time and you want to really know the honest opinion of your woman about yourself or something that you might have done together or whatever, that's the time to question. It's the time when she will tell you. And if something in a relationship doesn't work, that's the time when it will surface, will come up, bubble up. Maybe it could be not a very diplomatic way, but that depends if the woman is in pain or not. But anyway, let's just make it simple and useful. Hopefully you will listen to this. It's important time, because if you know this, you know that you can use that time to maybe discuss stuff that is important. Or if you, as a man, you haven't paid attention at all, you know, you have to listen and pay attention, because if it's something said during the week, it means that for the woman it's very important. So it's time to really, you know, if you need to maybe, at times it happens, you have to improve the relationship because there being something going on or whatever. That's the time to, you know, use it for your advantage. So, and knowledge is always powerful. Why? Because when you know, at least you know what to do about it.
That's really useful information. Do you get many men talking to you about these, mainly women?
Well, it was breaking up the line, but I suppose you're asking me if I get
No, I said
my clients.
Yeah, there's a funny connection. Do you get many men asking you about these things, or is it mainly women that you see?
Well, ideally, I want to work with women because I really believe in the depth of this simple stuff to be spread out. And it's one of the things that gives me the utmost joy, is to be able to unveil this mystery to women and see their face get lighter and all the rest of it. Funnily enough, though, because of the conditioning that affects everybody, obviously men and women, you know, it's not still at the time, these days, it's still something considered taboo. So, you know, many women have preconceptions about it. They don't want to know, no. And the funny thing is, I found that sometimes men tend to be more curious. And I think my theory is they are curious because they are fed up with dealing with the mystery, and they, you know, they want to know. And it's so nice to give this reassurance to them, you know, to make it simple so the mystery is resolved. And that doesn't mean that then relationship wise they got their stamps of, you know, and they got degree and they are done for life. Of course not, because then to implement the knowledge is the tricky bit. But the thing is, as we were saying just a minute ago, you know, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, I've noticed that you try to see things come through on Facebook and stuff, and it seems that a lot of men nowadays, younger generation of men, are getting much more involved in childbirth, getting much more involved in knowing the women. Maybe it's something that women have said, enough, we need to be seen. Maybe that's part of it. But I remember seeing something with two men actually having these machines strapped to them, so they went through labour, so they understood.
Ah, yes, I've seen that.
And
yes.
those poor guys, I mean, good on them, but oh dear, they did not suffer. And so it seems that men are getting much more open, but maybe women are becoming more vocal. Maybe that's something about it as well.
I think it's time for you know, to have an harmonious time together on planet Earth, and so it's time for men to be familiarized with the feminine mysteries, and for women it's time to get to know themselves. We need to know ourselves better, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I recognize that our sisterhood, meaning not the sisterhood to then fight men, because there's been enough of that on the planet, I think, but really to live in an harmonious way and have more fun for a change.
Yeah, when you understand each other, there's much more. It really is important, isn't it? That it was just what's popped into my mind is a song. Oh, it was about pina coladas and walking in the rain. I don't know if you know that song. It's an old song, but basically this man, and he's not happy with his relationship, so he's looking for somebody who likes drinking pina coladas and walking in the rain. I think I've got it right. And somebody he finds somebody online or something like that. Anyway, and they arrange to meet, and it's his woman, but they haven't talked. So he didn't know that she liked doing that stuff because they hadn't communicated enough. And just your word just brought that back to mind. It is about communication, isn't it? We're different creatures, but it is about communication. So you can it's like we don't have the man world and the woman world, but if you communicate, then you have both. You know, you might not experience it the same way, but you have knowledge of it. And so it's like when you get into a relationship, it's not just you and your friends, and it's not just you and your partner, but it's all their family, they're all their friends. So it opens another world, and I think that's what needs to happen, isn't it, really, with male and female. And some people have it. I know friends who've got such strong relationships because they talk, they communicate.
Yes, exactly. That's what I think that's the key thing that you brought up, is the effect of communication. And what I find, and I found directly on my skin in my life, that's why I'm so passionate about it, it changes the way a woman communicates with herself first, because obviously that comes first, the way she relates to herself, and the second, obviously, the way she relates to the world. Because the thing is, when we are not aware, we kind of we are unconscious of stuff going on. We just do our best. That's as simple as that. So, you know, maybe in our premenstrual week, we feel like kind of tied up with maybe time, with things to do and all the rest of it. And we feel this drawing inness urge that our bodies, you know, makes us feel. And we don't know how to deal with it. But if we are aware, then all we have to do is just communicate this need. And not necessarily we have to be abrupt or horrible. You can just simply say to our partner, for instance, look, I really need to rest tonight. Can you please take care of, I don't know, dinner, or take care of the children, or whatever it is. But if there is that knowledge on the woman's side, and also the man knows, well, then I don't think it would be a big of a problem. But if there isn't that knowledge, that awareness, you know, it might come through as a horrible fight, you know, or well, not fight, maybe a quarrel or debate over the dinner table, and all gets messy. We all be there. I know.
I know. So what are the main challenges you find in the work you do?
Well, it's the fact that, as we were saying, it is taboo. It's still taboo. I mean, I can't believe it, but that's it. 21st century, and we're still dealing with this thing like something like taboo. And I have to say something though, it's not just menstruation being taboo. Even if it's changing and there are many more women becoming aware, you can even read so much more recently in the last few years in the papers and the media. But still though, it's like sex maybe in the 60s, you know. It came out of being a taboo, and then what we did, we swung on the other side of things, you know. So before, nobody would talk about that, the unnominable, you know, the unspeakable, and then became just the overspoken and mistreated. Because basically when, you know, I don't think even these days sex is really dealt in a way that should be, but anyway, at least it's less taboo and we speak about stuff. Okay. Whereas for menstruation, forget it. It's still, we are still in that era where, even if it's strange, but people don't want to talk about it.
Interesting, isn't it? And it's, I mean, it's not like, you know, it's being treated a bit like pornography, isn't it? You know, and it's just a natural thing that happens to women during certain periods of their life, and it really is strange. We'll have to kind of try and untaboo it.
And that's my mission, you see. And so to answer your question, I find it quite tough, to be honest. And but the truth of the thing is that I didn't consciously choose it. Let's say in this way, I feel I've been chosen by this.
We all have our life paths, don't we? Yeah.
So I can't just say, oh, well, I changed job because I don't like it. I find it really difficult, yes. But I have to say that I also have at the same time the most exquisite satisfaction when I manage to reach the heart of a woman, and I can have the privilege to see her face lighting up and resolve things, and it's rewarding. It's so much rewarding, and you know, I'm sure it will be much easier in the future, but at the moment I think we can all do a bit to change it, and even just for the reason that we wouldn't be alive if a woman hadn't been menstruating one day and had some intercourse or sex, or however you want to call it, with a man. So we are all the result of it. So it's a bit strange. It's like almost like eat and spit in the same plate, you know, that we eat from. It's just a bit weird, but that's what we have been doing for a long time. Collectively, we have been doing that. So I never separate myself from everybody else, because we're all connected somehow. And who better than you knows this? Soulfully connecting. So we are all together in this. So you know, we can't separate. We can't separate ourselves because maybe we don't believe in this. Maybe, let's suppose, or we might feel that we are better than others because we have maybe broader view, whatever. That's okay, but still we belong to humanity. And so we can't separate ourselves from the rest. We progress collectively. So I think we all have to do our little bit.
I agree. And I think that, this is where, again, I think the internet and everything is really useful. I know there's lots of good stuff on it, but it just broadens people's mind. And, you know, we all have different strengths. We all know different things. And, you know, when I was a child, we didn't have any of this. So, I mean, it's so easy now for kind of teenagers. I mean, no, I'm not saying it's easy, because I think there's an awful lot more pressure because of internet and social media. I think it's not healthy in lots of different ways. but they have access to much more information, and good information if they choose. So their minds, it depends on which way they direct themselves or are directed, but they can get information. I mean, I find it amazing just being able, if I want to know about anything, all I have to do is Google it or use a search engine, and there's all this information out there.
It's amazing.
That when I was a child, it'd be much easier.
It's amazing. We live in an amazing time. It's just a question of becoming a bit more selective, maybe, in what interests us, and then go for it rather than just listening to everything.
I think partly I think the one thing about the technology is maybe people are working more in their heads, and when people do that, then they disconnect a bit from their bodies. And you know, and this is it. That disconnect is like, you don't want to know anything that's yucky about the body. Let's just stick with the intellectual side of it. I think maybe that's partly to do with it. There's a disconnection. Whereas if we were in some indigenous tribe or something, you're so connected to the body, to the earth, to nature. You might not know intellectually lots of stuff, but you have much more knowledge, and probably pertinent knowledge, than us in the West with all the kind of we know so much factual stuff, but we're disconnected to our body.
Even just for the fact that in a normal, I mean in a native environment, so maybe if you're in the jungle, I suppose, you know, you wouldn't have tampons or pads or whatever, so you would just see women just bleeding. So it becomes like kind of normal that you see a woman bleeding, and the woman just bleeds happily without her feeling guilty or whatever. And so in that respect, yes, native cultures are more connected to all these biological things we have in our body, because they did just witness it and they don't possibly judge it like we do now. Have become so clean and tidy and technologically alert and all the rest.
Well, Gabriella, it's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you. I've learned quite a lot. No, it's been really good. Thank you very much indeed. And I look forward, well, you know, if people want to find Gabriella and Flying Inspiration, she's actually listed on the Soulfully Connecting website, which is www.soulfully-connecting.com. So please check her out there. And if you're interested, please contact her. All right, from me and from Gabriella, it's goodbye for now. Thank you, Gabriella.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you very much.
Right.